Hi everybody, this is Tom Grisak, and I'm here with someone that I've known for many years, Charlotte Majzner. And Charlotte is a realtor. And what's nice is she's also a member of the Appraisal Review Board for Collin County. So that's the one area of contesting taxes that I can't answer questions on because I've never been through that process. And Charlotte, of course, she has to be sensitive about how she answers questions because, you know, I don't have to explain that. But she's going to tell me what she can about it. And then if you have questions, can I have them?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Text me, whatever. Maybe text is easier.
Okay, go ahead.
What's your 214-356-7062.
Okay, and what's your email address?
That is, I'll give you my personal email. That would be CHAR, then my last name, MAJZN as in Nancy, ER, 50@gmail.com.
Okay, great. And Charlotte, as I said, she's an excellent realtor. How long have you been in real estate?
Oh gosh, since 04.
Okay.
So I stopped counting the years. It's just I know I started in 04.
Right.
Yeah.
Easier way to do
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
And what areas do you work, or what's your specialty now, or do you have
Residential real estate, and
Okay.
I do some leasing transactions, not many, but mostly the buying and selling
Okay.
of residential properties. And
Okay.
in this local area,
Right.
Allen, McKinney, Fairview,
Okay.
even North Dallas, I've done as far as North Dallas.
Okay.
But
Good. Charlie's excellent. So if you have real estate needs, you might might give her a call. And that actually starts with my first question. I've never figured out how on the review board you cannot be a realtor. I mean, someone that doesn't have experience pricing properties, how can they sit on the board? I don't understand the process.
Well, first of all, there are about 50 members on the review board right now. And the thing to remember is that the review board is not part of the appraisal district. We are in a way a part. We're independent contractors, so
Okay.
we're not connected with the appraisal district.
Oh, okay. I didn't
And
realize
that is deliberate so that we can be impartial.
Right.
To the evidence that is brought to us. And as far as being a realtor, it helps. We go through a very extensive training, process
Right.
to determine what to look at, what to evaluate. And we do both commercial properties as well as residential properties, so there is a lot to consider there. Now, appraisers, there are some appraisers on the board also that are independent appraisers, not the ones connected with the appraisal district, that are also on the board too. But appraisals are done for different reasons. Some appraisals are done for financing or refi. Those show differently than those maybe that are done for market value. And there are some appraisals that are done not just for market value of properties, but also for the financial income that the properties bring.
Right.
So sometimes that is used as a basis
Okay.
rather than market value of the
Okay.
property. So there's a lot of things that go into it.
If you've got, say, 50 people on the board, and they're from are any of them not real estate related?
Absolutely. There's maybe a dozen that are real estate related, but there are people that have been school teachers, engineers, really all walks of life. There's a
Okay.
new one on the board, which is kind of interesting. Used to be an actor,
Oh,
believe it or not. So that was
Neat.
kind of interesting. But that's really done deliberately so that we're impartial
Okay.
when we're looking at the evidence, so that
Okay.
you don't interject your own feelings into it. For instance, I'm familiar with CMAs, and
why don't you explain what a CMA is?
it's a comparative market analysis. So as a realtor, I know what to look at, and I know the areas where there are better schools and maybe
Right.
not, or whatever. Well, when the appraiser and the taxpayer bring in their evidence, I have to go by what they're bringing me.
Right.
I can't go by what I know.
Right.
So
Right.
so
It's up to
I
the
have to-
it's up to the
it is.
taxpayer
It is.
to provide the
To provide-
documentation.
yes.
Yeah, that's
So
what we
in
advise.
some ways, it's actually better if you're not
Yeah.
you know, inexpert in real estate, because you
Right.
don't bring that into the picture.
Right.
So,
So how many, by the way, have you ever contested your,
several
good,
times,
good, because we're
couple
gonna talk
times.
about that too. I have too.
Yes. I've gone through the informal process. I was always kind of intimidated by thinking that I would have to go in front of a review board.
Right.
But something to remember is you don't have to do the informal. You can go directly in
Oh, see, I
front of
didn't
the
realize
review.
either.
I didn't either until this year. You can
Okay.
go directly in front of the review board. It's what you
Okay.
choose to do.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Okay, now, how many people will, I don't know if the term is rule, how many people, like when a case comes in, how many people will be looking at that case on the board?
There will be your chairperson is the one that directs the entire meeting, and he's a member of the board. There will be someone we call a driver who will be showing or driving the evidence, and then there will be a recorder that will be recording the evidence. So you're going to have about a total of probably three or four at the most
Okay.
board people. Then you have the property owner or taxpayer rather,
Right,
and then you've got the appraiser. Now, the taxpayer might have a representative, it might not be the actual
Right.
taxpayer, because there are
Right.
people that do
Right.
that.
right,
And sometimes there might be more than one taxpayer
right,
also.
okay. Now, so is it like how many of those people vote? I mean, is everybody in there, do they?
Just the board members, that's it. We
Okay.
listen to the evidence, and if you kind of think of it almost like, you know, and this is probably maybe not a good example, because it's kind of a negative thing, but when you get a driving ticket, you know, you have the choice of just appearing before the judge,
Mhm.
and with just the policeman there or whatever, and then you have a choice of going in front of a jury of your own peers.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what you're doing when you're going in front of the board. These are people that are your peers,
Okay,
and they're the ones that are supposed to be and that are impartial in
Right.
their decision. So everything is based on evidence.
so how many people would be, on a typical case, how many people look at it? How many people rule, yes, we agree, no, we don't agree?
Typically about 3 to 4 people.
Okay,
About
and
3
if there's a
people.
tie, a deadlock, what happens?
There
Not gonna be a
typically
tie?
isn't.
Okay,
There typically isn't.
Okay.
And the meeting is conducted like a formal meeting.
Is it?
You know, it's actually, someone will put forth a motion. Is that based on the evidence that we're seeing? We put forth a motion that X number of dollars is what we think is fair.
right,
And then someone will second the motion.
okay, all right.
So
Now, who actually pays for the services of the ARB?
that actually is the appraisal district.
Okay,
So we actually are financially supported by the appraisal district, but we
Okay.
are independent contractors. We don't work for
Okay.
them,
all right,
or we don't work on their behalf.
right,
You know, we're impartial, and
okay,
that's the reason for it.
okay. And let me explain this too, I can't remember if we talked about it at first. The process, although you can go to the review board, most people do actually start with their, what would you call that?
Informal.
Okay, the
the
informal hearing.
Hearing.
And then we're gonna talk about that too, because
Sure.
we advise, consult people on what they should bring with them and how to state their case, so I'm gonna ask you more
Sure.
about that.
Okay.
But if you can't come to terms with your, with that meeting, then you have the right to go to the, I keep calling it ABR, it's ARB.
ARB.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And then after that, that's really, I mean, there's nothing after that?
Yes, there is.
Oh, there is, okay.
Yes, so the review board is not the final
Oh.
word. So if you're not satisfied as a taxpayer with the decision of the review board, you can appeal.
Okay,
And that would be in arbitration, and they call it binding arbitration.
okay.
And there is a form that you fill out and apply for that if you're not
Okay,
satisfied with
so both
that.
parties have to agree
Mhm.
that they'll abide by whatever and now who are those
Yes.
people?
Well, that is done by an arbitrator,
Okay,
and that I don't know.
Okay.
Very honestly, I'm
okay,
not sure what that
Yeah,
process is.
yeah, okay.
But we're
Well,
not the final word.
Right, okay,
So-
well, see, I learned something, I thought
Mhm.
you guys were. Okay,
Mhm.
now, the people can, like you said, they can be a little intimidated, by having to go up and speak in front of people.
Exactly.
I know everything's been, because of COVID, it's being done by now
Yes.
locally, on Zoom.
Well, it's actually not Zoom, we do it telephone conference.
Okay.
We don't do a Zoom, it's a telephone conference, but all of the evidence is sent to the board ahead of time.
Okay,
So the board actually, the evidence is all there for us to review.
all right.
And there's computers and we see
Okay.
everything is scanned and we
Okay, I
see
get it.
everything,
So they're gonna
made that
send
way.
their documentation to you first on what
Yes.
they say, well, look,
Yes.
I need a new roof, or I've got
Mhm.
foundation,
Yes.
issues, and I'm gonna show
Right.
you the estimate for those foundation repairs.
Yes.
Those are sent to you beforehand.
That's sent beforehand, so all
Okay.
the evidence is sent beforehand. So what happens when you apply, well, there's a form that you use to file your protest. So you fill out that form. It doesn't have to be that form. It could be in your own format, just as long as all the
Right.
information is there.
Right.
But the form is there. You've got your taxes. The form is there right on the back of your
Right.
tax estimate. So it's probably a good idea to use that.
Right,
And there you have the option of doing an informal hearing where you just send in your evidence and the appraiser will look at it and you'll get your determination. Or there's another little box that you can check
where you wanna talk to
you
somebody?
want to talk, yes,
Okay.
where you want to,
Makes sense,
go in front of the board.
right. But going in front of the board, does that
Yes.
really mean going in front, or?
Well, no,
still?
that means by phone right
Okay.
now. So I don't know if they ever will go back to in person.
Right,
Right now, they've got the rooms all redesigned with plexiglass and everything else where it's all teleconference.
honestly, we're
But-
so used to
Mhm.
Zoom, which we use Zoom for everything, we're so
Sure.
used to it. And the quality is so good, with
It
cameras
is.
and everything.
Right,
To me, it's
right.
kind of a no-brainer. I
Mhm.
and I have been through one time. I've actually contested, and it really was a simple process. Although I
Mhm.
had to sit there, I didn't wait for
Mhm.
more than 15 minutes. I saw
Sure.
somebody. We went back and forth. I didn't get everything I wanted, but I did get them
Mhm.
to come down some. I
Mhm.
felt, okay, that's fair. I see why
Sure.
you're saying that, and it was
Sure.
really not a big deal. But I think it's even better now that you don't have to appear in person.
Right.
And I hope
Right.
it stays that way, because I think it saves everybody time, it's more
It-
efficient.
Mhm. I
Okay,
agree, I think so too. And so far, they've spent a lot of money redesigning those rooms, for that specific way to
so
do
the waiting
it.
rooms
So
have been redesigned?
There
Or
are no more waiting rooms.
Oh, okay,
Yes, those have gone away. Because I know when I protested my taxes informally, I would go, I wouldn't have to make an appointment. I would just go
yeah,
and I would have my documentation.
the old
and,
ways.
And then the old ways. I'd wait in the waiting room and then they'd call your number,
Right,
whatever it
right.
is. And then I'd go, it was a one-on-one with the appraiser.
Right,
So, they don't do that anymore, at least
Okay.
not that way.
yeah,
So I think the new way is a lot better.
okay,
And you brought up estimates, and that's one thing I want to stress that is very important. If your property, now there's two ways you can protest your property, two ways. Market value is one, and the other one is called equity
mhm,
value. In other words, market value is based on homes that have sold within a certain time period,
mhm.
and
By
that's
the
what
way,
you're
excuse me,
using.
just one second, you gotta be
Sure.
very specific on the
Mhm.
dates you use. I don't know if
Yes.
you know those,
Yes,
I'll post,
absolutely.
you know
need to
those
be
dates
very-
when the comps have to be between?
Yes, the best comps are the ones that are closest to January 1st of the current year.
Okay,
So January 1st of 2021, you'd want your comps, you can go back to February
of last year,
year.
right,
You can go all the way to the end of January of this year, but the comps that are closest to that January 1st date
okay.
is what is really the focus.
And what's the deadline that you can't use a comp after a certain point,
Well, you
period?
can't use it after January 31st.
Okay,
That would be.
all right. Because I
that
had
would
just
be-
a story here, when I contested mine, I had the perfect comp for our home. I mean, it couldn't have been better, but it was just outside of that date by about 3 or 4 days.
Oh, yes.
And they wouldn't use it, so we
Right.
had to use another comp that really I didn't feel was a great comp, but,
Mhm. Yes.
Pricing homes, it's not a science really, it's an
It
art.
isn't. It
That's
is.
why they call them opinions of value, and that's why you really got some grounds to stand on too. If you look, this is my opinion, that's your opinion, all right, let's see if we can make common ground here.
Exactly. And that's really what you're trying to do is to get common ground. And appraisers are usually quite good at what they do, but they're not perfect
Right,
like any of us. So there might be some things that they've overlooked. And then,
Right.
of course, the thing to remember is when they do appraisals, they do it en masse.
Mhm.
So they do all the homes you know, in an area. They're
Right.
not doing your individual home, and your individual home may be very unique for
Right,
whatever reason.
right.
So that
And
is
they
the
don't get a
reason.
chance to go in the homes.
They don't.
So they have no
They
idea
don't.
unless you file for some
They
type of
don't.
permit to.
Exactly.
Now, they will find out if you've done any exterior work to your home, because they actually fly every property every year.
Mhm.
And if they see a structure that's added onto
Yeah.
your home, they'll pick that up, they'll find out what happened, and that does add to your value.
Right.
So, you know, you could have a very highly improved home that they've never been in, or you could have a home that's in the middle of very highly improved homes, and yours doesn't have those.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
that's a case you can make. Say, look, these are all, you know, very high-end, highly finished out homes. Our home just doesn't have all that. You know, we've got, maybe we don't have granite or that type of countertops. We've got, you know, culture,
Sure.
things like that.
Sure.
And I don't know how they know this, but they also know if your home's been updated. I have no idea, but I can look at homes, I say, yeah, how did they know the home was updated? So people typically don't file for permits if work is done inside.
That's
But
true.
they have to do
They
it if
have
it's
to
done
if it's done
outside.
outside.
Right.
Mhm.
So I'm not saying they're sneaky, they're just good. You know,
They're
they're
just
good at what
good.
they do, and it's their
Yeah.
job. In my opinion, if you have added value to your home, then, you know, you gotta pay a little bit more for your share.
That's true.
So,
That's true.
okay, now why did you decide to go on the board? What was your,
Well, I heard that they were looking for new board members because they have now limited their terms to 2-year terms. So half of the board members were on much longer than 2 years, and they had to resign. They
Right.
had to leave their
right,
leave the board. So they really were in need of a lot more,
Right.
you know, so that not any one board member is working 7
Right.
days, 6
Right.
days a week, because
Right.
they do work on Saturdays too. So I heard that there were openings, they were looking for new people, and I wanted just to kind of, two
Yeah.
reasons. I wanted to give back to the community that way,
Mhm.
and a second reason is I really wanted to learn more about the appraisal process
Right.
for my own sake, for my own
Right.
business.
Right, well,
So-
that probably helps you with your clients too.
It does.
When they're coming to you for advice on, should we add
Mm-hmm.
improvements, is that gonna help us with our values, or should we not do something, or,
Right.
so I could see how that would be a big help. And again, that's why I'm just trying to get my head around why someone that knows nothing about real estate could be making a determination, but I guess, I mean, I understand the concept, why it has to be done that way, but I would assume it'd be all appraisers, or all, or realtors, or a mix of appraisers and just realtors, but, okay, and I'm sure it's not a high-paying gig either, you're not.
No, you really don't do it for the money. I mean, they do pay you, but you wouldn't do it for the money.
Right. Okay.
So-
Now, when I talk to my what do you call the representative at the first meeting? What are they called? Just the appraisal. What is
The
that person?
appraiser.
Appraiser. So you
Appraiser.
call them appraisers too.
They're appraisers.
Okay. When I met with the appraiser, I was really interested in how they work, so I asked a bunch of questions, and she said they're assigned so many properties in an area, and they spend most of their year driving around looking at the properties
Right.
physically. I mean, and then you know, once we get into this time, then they're not doing that any longer. They're spending all the time working on them. But you don't have to do any of that, do you?
No.
Okay.
No, we don't do any of that. And that's for a reason. Because, like I said, we're almost like the jury that comes in with a clear mind, and we're just looking at the evidence that the appraiser brings,
Right.
why he's determined the value of this
Right.
property that way, and then we look at the evidence that the taxpayer brings, why the taxpayer doesn't think that the appraisal was fair.
Right.
And then we try to come, you know, in
Right.
between somewhere,
Right.
and, you know, for instance, if we're looking at comparables, as I say, we'll look at comparables that are closest to that January 1st date. So if the taxpayer has pictures, they're a great help. So any pictures you can bring is tremendous.
Great idea. People listen
Yeah.
to that. Take some
So,
pictures of your
sure.
kitchen. Take some pictures
Exactly.
of, you know, if you've got an issue,
Yes.
take pictures of it. You just, it's up to you. You can't walk
Yeah.
and say, I think you got my property value too high.
You
It's up
can't
to you
do
to make your case.
Yes, we have to see the evidence.
And you're not gonna do it for them. That's their job.
And we can't.
Yeah.
Even if we know better, we can't do it for them.
Right.
You know, for instance, if somebody brings in some property values that they feel that, I mean, it could be across the street from you, but it could be another school district.
Right.
That,
Exactly.
that actually, you know, is a better
Right.
district in the marketplace, and yours isn't. And we as realtors, well, we know that, but if you don't bring that up as evidence, we can't bring
Right.
that up either.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, we can ask questions to clarify the evidence that you bring, but we can't bring our
Right.
opinion into it.
Okay, this is a question, realtor and ARB related. Last year, when I contested, I'm kind of a curious cat. I'm always asking questions. But I said, do you plug in a difference between Lovejoy ISD and say McKinney ISD, two homes right across the street from each other? And she said, yes, we do. We assign more value to Lovejoy. Is that I mean, would you be of that same mindset of Lovejoy does carry a higher value than a?
Yes, and not as a board member, but as a realtor,
Okay.
I know that Lovejoy
Right.
would carry a higher value because
Right.
I had a listing in an area where they were not in the Lovejoy. Across the street was Lovejoy, and they were in Wiley, and it did not bring the dollars that
Right. Right.
they expected, that they wanted,
Right.
because for that
Right.
reason. So
Right.
yeah, so as a realtor, I know that, but as a board member, unless that was brought up by either the appraiser or the taxpayer, I could not.
You can't interject.
I can't interject,
I
and I
gotcha.
can't
Yeah,
even
that
use
makes
that
sense.
as an opinion.
Yeah, you're kind of like
So-
an intermediary in a way, intermediate
Exactly.
relationship.
That's exactly it.
Okay, that
Sure.
makes sense. And okay, I've got a whole list of questions here.
Sure.
How many people, you told me that, how long you served, how many realtors, are there a certain number of realtors required to be on the board?
No, there aren't.
Okay.
Right now, there's probably maybe a dozen or so.
Okay. Let's see, bias unit is paid, why do you want to be on the board? Oh, do you have any idea what percentage of contested cases that are kicked up to the review board are solved or remediated, whatever the agreed upon?
It's actually a pretty high percentage. I don't have the exact figure, but I
Okay.
certainly know it's more than 50% are
Okay.
resolved in favor of the
Right.
taxpayer.
So if you've got a good
Yeah.
case and you don't get it at
Absolutely.
the first level, go to the second.
Yes.
We talked about was phone, appeal process. Okay, explain this. One of we do a service where we will actually consult with people and give them comparables. We think we might help them state their case. It's a public service. And one of the people in our meetings brought up the fact that they had just had an appraisal done on the home, and it was a lot lower than what the county was assessing or appraising their property. And they said, well, we can't use that appraisal. Why would you not be able to use, it was a refinance appraisal too.
Well, that one, I don't know that I can really answer
Not that specifically that one.
But I know that in some cases that refi and mortgage appraisals, for whatever reason, aren't always, we can't always use them. I mean, it could be anything. It could be the date. It could be,
Okay.
just a different reason that
Right.
appraisal is used for.
Right.
But without really knowing all the facts,
Right.
I mean, it
It's
would be kind of hard to
impossible to say. Okay,
Yeah.
I got it. Let's see, another person asked, I was appraised and assessed to me, I use those
Sure.
interchangeably. I had a pool that was under construction and they charged me full value for that pool and we were only like a quarter of the way through. How would that, that's something that they could bring up, right? And they could appeal on that.
Yes, they could definitely bring that up and bring up their evidence as to why they didn't think that, they should be assessed the full value.
Right.
But if they hadn't brought the evidence, then there's not, I mean, I
Right.
don't know again how to answer
Right.
that, because maybe that's, maybe they brought that up, but they didn't have the actual evidence.
Okay, but
Possibly.
in theory, if a home is partially completed, you're only assessed for the value of that home that's completed on new construction. Is that correct?
Yes,
And then
right.
that's why your taxes will go up after your home is completed the next
Yes,
year. A lot of
exactly.
people don't realize that.
Exactly.
And you could make the case it's the same with a pool. Being charged
Sure.
taxes on a $150,000 pool, but it was only $25,000 finished when you. So that would be something that may be used. You would
That
say.
yes, you could definitely bring that
Okay.
up with pictures and so forth, and dates of, when the projected completion is, whatever, because, bear in mind that whatever happens as of January 1st, that is the date that they're using, January 1 of the current year.
Okay.
So if any kind of damage even occurs say after that, I mean, we had this horrible winter storm now, and a lot of people suffered some really big damage. Now there is a provision where you can get a temporary exemption if your damage was 15% or more, you know, of your, but that's an exemption. That's not, that does not affect the assessment as far as the assessment goes.
Let me, excuse me, let me make sure I understand that. So the damage that was done during the storm, they would have to use that next year and not this year?
If the damage was not repaired.
If it was not repaired?
Yes, but if it was repaired, then there's nothing to, you know, then it wouldn't matter.
That's right. So they'd have to leave it unrepaired for a year. I don't think anybody would want to do that.
Yeah, no, I don't
just
think
to save
so.
a few bucks.
Don't think so either.
Okay.
And that is very important too, as far as estimates. For instance, if your property really needs foundation repair or some really extensive repairs, and if you were, you know, to put it on the market January 1 without having these things completed, get estimates. Bring your estimates and show, so that there's an actual
one estimate do they
dollar.
have to bring multiple?
Well, it depends on what the issue. No, one estimate per, you know, per whatever the problem is. But absolutely, estimates add to the evidence. Pictures, estimates, pictures of other homes, you know, which you can get off of MLS that actually have sold for higher than yours, maybe, or less than yours, but compare them to yours. So pictures are great. Piece of evidence.
I'll tell you a funny story here. I was actually, and I'm not sure how this happened. I was somehow, I think one of my sellers had asked me if I would go talk to the board about the pricing of their home, so how they had it valued. Excuse me, I'm sitting there talking to the guy, and I had the home listed. So he had the screen towards me. Towards him, I was looking at it, and we were talking about values. And he said, "So you think that home is really worth about $750?" I said, "Probably." So he turned the screen around. We had it listed for like $8.25.
Oh my!
So those guys, they do have access to the MLS.
Oh yes, yeah, they do. Absolutely, they do. So,
like I say, you guys are good. Let me tell you, your values used to be way off in years ago, and I never even paid attention to them. They've gotten a lot better and a lot closer. And sometimes they're honestly right in line where I think a home should be. And I don't know how they corrected that problem. I don't agree with all of them, but I think they've to the point where, okay, I can see why they said that. And what they wouldn't know is what's inside the home.
Exactly, and that's where you come in. The taxpayer comes in with the evidence, pictures, estimates, and so forth. And that's if we're looking at market value, because that's one way you can contest. But you can also contest by other homes, you know, in your block, your area, whatever, that are similar or comparable to your home, that maybe have had the upgrades. They're not for sale, they haven't been for sale, they're just there. So, and if you know that these homes have been upgraded, yours isn't.
You might know. How does the board know? You know, how do you make your case if you don't go in there and take pictures of their home?
Well, that's a good point. But
you could see it on the MLS.
But you could see it on the MLS. But that is the second way to contest it. It's called the equity protest.
Okay.
And the suggestion is there's 2 boxes on that protest form to check off whether you are protesting based on market value, whether you're protesting on equity value. It's a very good idea to mark both of them.
Listen, good point.
Both of them.
I didn't realize that.
Yes, because then you will have the opportunity to present both sides.
Can you change your mind if you go in, you're just doing a market and they don't give it to you and say, okay, well, let me do it in equity, or?
Well, no, because then they'll do equity. And there have been cases, because we've, you know, like I said, this is my first year on the board. But we've sat in and listened to past cases, and there have been cases where they didn't really quite win their case for market. So the second part of the hearing was for the equity, and that they did get. So they did get some off because of that. So, and what the board will do is vote on the value that is most favorable to the taxpayer. So, you know, for instance, if the equity is higher than the market, they'll do the market, and vice versa.
And how long does that process take? Are you right there? Do they do it right in front of you?
They do it right there, yeah,
Okay.
they do it right there. The first part of the hearing is over, then they'll go into the equity part of the hearing.
And they don't ask you to leave the room and
Oh,
talk
no,
about it?
no, no,
Okay.
no, actually, you hear everything that's said, that's the
Okay.
thing, it's all completely transparent.
Good.
And the process is about 15 minutes, so you get about 5 minutes to present your case. The appraiser gets about 5 minutes to present their case,
Mhm.
and then the board members get about 5 minutes to,
Ask questions?
you can ask questions
Okay.
for clarification, of the evidence,
Right.
and about 5 minutes to make the determination, and that's
Okay,
usually what it
good.
takes.
Let's see, we talked about Zoom or doing it online.
Mhm.
How many people, okay, there are 50 on the review board. How many are the appraisers are there for the Collin County? Do you have any idea?
I really don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know that.
And let me say this too, the appraisers, they have an incentive to try to get you to settle right there.
Mhm.
They don't want, I would imagine, I don't know how they work exactly, but I would imagine, I wouldn't want to be someone that's known for having every case kicked up to the review board.
Mhm.
They're trying to settle with you right there, and they're trying to be
Mhm.
reasonable.
Mhm.
So it's not I know it's difficult sometimes to think that they're not there just trying to get more tax money.
Mhm.
They just want to be fair, and I've always been impressed with the way they've handled it.
Yes.
Okay, so you don't know how many cases each agent handles or each appraiser handles. Let me see, what is it? I'm going to contested value. Okay, really, we actually went over all the topics that I wanted to
Sure.
ask you.
Sure.
So we've got till May 17th to
This time,
contest.
yeah. And it was May 15th all along this year for some reason, and you may notice that on your appraisals that you had gotten, the date is the 17th.
Okay.
So you do have that extra time to contest
No
it.
exceptions after that?
No exceptions after
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Typically no.
All right, well, folks, there it
Okay.
is. I do recommend that if you feel like your value is out of line, that does save you quite a bit of money, or can save you money if you get those values down. 65, I'd say especially, that's when you, by the time you're 65, you need to have been, some people I know, they appeal every year. And I look at the values of their home, and they're way down here, from the county's perspective, it's down here, but I know that that's way up here, the
Exactly.
value. Those are people that every year they go and appeal. So if you're worried about that, trying to get your taxes down, it's a great way to do it. You don't have to do anything. If you feel like they're fair, then you don't have to contact
Exactly.
anybody. You're just going to be.
You're just there. Like I did a analysis of my appraisal for my home now, thinking that I'll protest, but they were right on the money. There was nothing to protest. They were,
Really? Okay.
Yeah, they were. As a matter of fact, they probably valued it a little lower than I would have.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
I
good.
was okay.
And let me say this too, the appraisers, they have an incentive to try to get you to settle right there.
Mhm.
They don't want, I would imagine, I don't know how they work exactly, but I would imagine, I wouldn't want to be someone that's known for having every case kicked up to the review board.
Mhm.
They're trying to settle with you right there, and they're trying to be
Mhm.
reasonable.
Mhm.
So it's not I know it's difficult sometimes to think that they're not there just trying to get more tax money.
Mhm.
They just want to be fair, and I've always been impressed with the way they've handled it.
Yes.
Okay, so you don't know how many cases each agent handles or each appraiser handles. Let me see, what is it? I'm going to contested value. Okay, really, we actually went over all the topics that I wanted to
Sure.
ask you.
Sure.
So we've got till May 17th to
This time,
contest.
yeah. And it was May 15th all along this year for some reason, and you may notice that on your appraisals that you had gotten, the date is the 17th.
Okay.
So you do have that extra time to contest
No
it.
exceptions after that?
No exceptions after
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Typically no.
All right, well, folks, there it
Okay.
is. I do recommend that if you feel like your value is out of line, that does save you quite a bit of money, or can save you money if you get those values down. 65, I'd say especially, that's when you, by the time you're 65, you need to have been, some people I know, they appeal every year. And I look at the values of their home, and they're way down here. From the county's perspective, it's down here, but I know that that's way up here. The value. Those are people that every year they go and appeal. So if you're worried about that, trying to get your taxes down, it's a great way to do it. You don't have to do anything. If you feel like they're fair, then you don't have to contact anybody. You're just going to be
you're just there. Like I did a analysis of my appraisal for my home now, thinking that I'll protest, but they were right on the money. There was nothing to protest. They were,
really okay.
Yeah, they were. As a matter of fact, they probably valued it a little lower than I would have. So
yeah, good.
I was okay.
Good. Well, Charlotte, thank you so much for you've answered. I learned so much. I know quite a bit about the original process, but I knew nothing about the review board. And now, I could talk about it intelligently. So thank you so much for coming.
There's one more point that I would like to bring up, and I don't know if many people realize this, but you can ask for evidence prior to the hearing from the appraiser.
Okay.
Or ask, to see why.
Right.
So that when you do go into the hearing, you have their
That's
evidence
a great idea.
also.
Yeah.
So you know what to expect.
How much lead time is there by the time you actually submit your request to the hearing is set up?
About 15 days. When you do send in your form to protest, you will get something back from them, from the board, some information that you can use that may help you also.
Right.
So.
Good. Well, Charlotte, thank you so much for you've answered. I learned so much. I know quite a bit about the original process, but I knew nothing about the review board. And now, I could talk about it intelligently. So thank you so much for coming.
There's one more point that I would like to bring up, and I don't know if many people realize this, but you can ask for evidence prior to the hearing from the appraiser.
Okay.
Or ask, to see why.
Right.
So that when you do go into the hearing, you have their
That's
evidence
a great idea.
also.
Yeah.
So you know what to expect.
How much lead time is there by the time you actually submit your request to the hearing is set up?
About 15 days.
So you got plenty of
usually.
time.
Yes.
And it's their job to get their reasoning to you why they think it's priced. Then you have something to.
Yes.
It's very much like a court,
Very much like it. Very much like it. And as a matter of fact, when you do send in your form to protest, you will get something back from them, from the board, some information that you can use that may help you also.
Right.
So.
Okay, that's good to know. Well, Charlotte, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking your time.
Anytime.
And again, guys, Charlotte's a great agent, and with that experience with the review board, I honestly think that can help you with your home too. So keep her in mind if you're thinking about buying or selling a home.
Well, thank you, Tom.
All right, thank you. All right.